Hunter Coleman. She's joining us tonight as our student rep from Ignacio Valley High School. I want to start with roll call. Mr. Lawrence.
Here.
Ms. Mayo.
Here.
Ms. Turkey.
Here.
Ms. Hanson.
Here.
And I'm here as well. Will you join me for a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, in closed session, we were able to, on item 7.3, get an update from our legal counsel and give them direction. On item 7.4, we dealt with that and got information. And on 7.5, we were able to get information on one case. We will be going back into closed session. And we also took a vote to readmit student 08-16 to all regular schools in Mount Diablo Unified School District. So it's now time for public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of Mount Diablo Unified School District that is not on the agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. And I just want to let you know that we appreciate any time you come down and give us public comment, but there are open meeting laws that allow us to do one of three things. We can ask a clarifying question, we can refer you to our staff, or we can put it on a future agenda. So if we're not answering your question, it's not because we're not listening and we don't care. It's just we're trying to be good board members and follow the open meeting regulations. So having said that, do we have any public comments?
No, we don't, but that was a nice introduction.
I'll be saying that each and every week. Okay, so now we're on 9.0, public employee appointment. And I will turn that over to
I would like to recommend to the board for the position of Building and Grounds Manager, David Hart. David comes to us with a degree from Peralta College in Liberal Arts. He also has science degree from I always say this wrong, Las Medanas College in Pittsburgh, California. He has experience as an area facility manager in Mount Diablo, as well as a custodial supervisor at El Dorado Middle School. He also worked as a recreation specialist for the city of Concord, a custodial lead worker at El Dorado Middle, a custodian at Clayton Valley High School, as well as starting his work here in Mount Diablo as a substitute. So it is without hesitation, I recommend David Hart for the position of Building and Grounds Manager.
do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that the board approve David Hart for the position of Building and Grounds Manager.
Second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor will vote, or not, those are voting.
Yay!
Make a statement or introduce anybody that you brought with you this evening?
I'd like to say thank you to the board and to Mr. Greathouse, who recommended me for this position. I'm so excited to start my next phase of employment with the Mount Diablo Unified School District. This is my 29th year. I absolutely love working here. It has been nothing but a blessing to me, my wife, my children, and now my grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Meyer, we have
Yes, thank Thank you. I would like to recommend to the board for the position of Supervisor Senior Trades, Charles Bygarten Jr. Charles comes to us with experience from Diablo Valley College in construction, a degree in construction, as well as Labor Technical College experience where he received a journeyman certificate. He has experience currently working as a construction manager too, with our Measure C program. He also has experience as an owner of a construction firm, Magnum Construction, as well as experience as a journeyman carpenter. So I would like to recommend Charles Bygarten Jr. for the position of Supervisor Senior Trades.
Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move that the board approve the appointment of Charles Bygarten Jr. as Supervisor of Senior Trades. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Statement or introduce anybody?
I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody at Mount Diablo. I'm really excited to, as David is, to move on to a new phase in our tenure here at the school district. I haven't been here that long, only 3.5 years, but I do have 40 years in the industry of experience, and so I bring a lot to the table that I can't wait to offer into this department and help expand and move everything forward. Thank you.
Okay. Board member reports. Mr. Lawrence, do you have any report to make? Okay. Yes, ma'am. I know you do. Yes.
Unpredictable, huh? I wanted to announce that I attended the CAC meeting on, that's the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education on January 3rd. At that meeting, Hillary Shin provided a presentation on connecting with outside resources. At each CAC meeting, she distributes information and events for parents and their children on a variety of topics. CAC member Vi Ibarra spoke about the role of the Care Parent Network in Contra Costa County. This organization helps guardians meet the unique challenges of parenting with special needs, including students, including providing education about disabilities, how to advocate, and sometimes the most important role of just listening as a neutral third party. I hope that you've all received the announcement of the 3 CCC SBA events on January 19th that will be held at the County Office of Education. There is a review of Governor Brown's 2017-18 budget proposals presented by Capital Advisors from 2 to 4:30. At 5 o'clock, there's a dinner and a special recognition of Assemblywoman Susan Bonilla. And then from 6 to 8, there will be a presentation by CSBA Assistant Executive Director of Governmental Relations, Dennis Myers, and the Legislative Advocate, Terry Burns, on the budget implication and writing LCAPs and rubrics and the details. So I hope that you'll be able to attend, and members of the public would certainly be welcome to attend too. You can contact me to understand how to register. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Durkee, do you have anything to report?
No, I just want to say it's my second meeting, so I've done a lot since the first one. But Happy New Year to everybody, and thank you. I did sign up for this. I know I'm going to go, and I'm also going to go to a 2-day training, how to be a good board member in Sacramento at the end of the month. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson?
Happy New Year to everyone as well. We started out pretty wet and windy here. I think it was before New Year, we had our DLAC meeting, which I would love to attend, the DLAC meeting, just like the CAC. They're functional, wonderful committee meetings, and they're fully attended by our EL parents. And they couldn't be more proactive, nicer people. So I'm going to appreciate the chance to continue working as the board rep this year on that. And they did a nice thank you to Jose Espinoza as he moves on to Assistant Soup of Elementary Ed, leaving a big hole in our English language area. We're going to have to find a new director of EL now, which is a good problem to have, I guess. But they did a nice thank you to Jose, and I would thank him as well. He's sitting right over here. I would thank him as well for his service in the past year with the English language learners, and I know he'll go on to serve, and he already has, his elementary head. And then just a reminder that we do have joint city council meetings and coming up, and I'm going to turn to Mrs. Maher too, because I had said before I moved over to this seat that I would get something out to you, and I think our first one, if I just wanted to verify it in here, is February 6th with the city of Pleasant Hill. And we should have put those dates in, so I think we have February 6th, city of Pleasant Hill, March 6th with Clayton, April 10th with Walnut Creek, if they confirmed,
They're on our
And-
calendar.
May 1st with city of Concord, correct?
Yes, I believe Walnut Creek is.
She put them all on our calendar.
So just want to reinforce that we're still actively meeting with those city councils and looking forward to those starting in February. Thank you.
Yeah, just ask a question. Which calendar is that? I looked at our MDUSD calendar under future board agenda. This was the only meeting I saw listed, and I'd had people ask me, so I wasn't seeing anything for either the community meetings or even the January 23rd listed on MDUSD.
Okay, we'll get those on there.
Thank you very
It
much.
was on the calendar that we approved at our last meeting for our meeting dates, and then she updated it, so maybe you didn't receive the update. Okay. And for me, it seems like it's been so long. I went to lots of Christmas events at the schools. I went to the CSEA party that they had, the DLAC meeting, and we had a governance training, which was very fun and informative. And one of the ideas that came up there was possibly having a board handbook, which probably isn't really exciting to you guys, but I think it'd be exciting for new board members. And so that's something that I would like to, moving forward this year, look at getting together. And with that, Hunter, would you like to report anything to us?
Good evening, President. Maybe. Okay. Good evening, President Hansen, members of the board, Superintendent Meyer, members of Superintendent's Council, and members of the audience. I am Hunter Caldwell, and I'm the ASB president at the Nation Valley High School. Since the last meeting that I attended, we have gotten a few things done. Our Warrior Appreciation Commissioner did a program with Make-A-Wish and Macy's and their letters to Santa, and so every letter that a student writes to Santa, Macy's donates like $5 or so, I think, and we got $1,200 donated from our letters to Make-A-Wish Foundation. We also had our senior breakfast on December 16th, the day before the break, and staff and seniors had a fun day together playing board games in their pajamas. We also did hall decorating a few days before break, and clubs and leadership had a great time spending the night together decorating the hallways, and I know it's one of the students' favorite things to be able to have the holiday spirit going around at school. Our CSF club won with their theme of gingerbread house, so they won pizza party, I think it is. And then we have our winter rally coming up on February 10th. The theme is hairspray, so we're gonna go all out 60s and have a lot of fun. You guys are invited if you want. We are preparing for CASTLE, which is the leadership conference that we attend every year, and we actually brought the award that we won last year to the last meeting, and I'm working on the application for that award again, and hopefully we win. I think we've won like 8 consecutive years in a row now. And I'm also going to be doing a Meet the Pros presentation myself there and submitting the application for that soon, so hopefully I also get a chance to present. We also got our blood drive rescheduled for January 26th, and we're looking for signups. And that is all that is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now it's time to hear from our superintendent.
Yes, thank you, President Mason. I want to first of all congratulate our new president and our new vice president, and thank all of you for taking on this challenge to continue in the role as board members as we move forward. I also want to point out that that award that Hunter mentioned is no easy task. It's the competition is throughout California, and so to be a consecutive winner in that is extremely rare and something that we should be proud of. So congratulations to you and your team, Hunter. To kind of start out, we had a few days. We're kind of in the middle here. We're turning the corner since our last board meeting, and I wanted to first of all wish all of you as well a happy New Year, and let you know that 2017, as we learn to write it on, I guess we don't write checks anymore, but on whatever it is that we're putting the date on, that we're very excited, and our students came back fresh and ready to learn. And so we're thrilled to be here for them. We have some new projects on the horizon that we're going to talk about tonight. And I'm very excited about some of the ideas that we're going to put in place. And we're really preparing for 17-18. So we wanted to put that out there. So if you have any good ideas and things that we're doing, our team here centrally is already getting ready for that year. So we're always forward thinking, but working in the present as well. And then lastly, as was mentioned by Ms. Mason, we did have a governance team right before the break, and a governance team meeting with all of us up here. And we talked about protocols for the board. We talked about agreements that we would have, and had a Brown Act training that I thought went very well, Mr. Schenke. It's because I gave it. It's kind of a joke. But also, we talked about the idea of public comment, as was mentioned. And I wanted to take this opportunity during the report to mention, to reiterate, I should say, that when comments come up at the board, that we do only have a few options. So sometimes we can circle back at the next meeting and clarify some things. One of the things that was difficult to not respond to at the last board meeting had to do with one of our charter schools' rocket ship. And it was brought up that they were not getting warm food, that they could not play on the playground, and that there were some unauthorized projects that were happening. And I did want to share, they are getting hot food every day. Because as educators, if you're sitting in the audience and you heard this, it would be difficult to hear. I want to share the structure of the playground schedule is such as it is at every elementary school. They're sharing it and it's scheduled. And yes, we're still hashing out some projects that were done. So we're still looking at that. So I'm going to take my beginning of the year prerogative to clear that up. I do, though, want to say, I was being visited by our new board member, Ms. Durkee, right at the end of the year, and then all of a sudden there was a group who came with cookies from Serendipity, and here they are, and the gentleman on the left was the one who had the longest arm, so he got to take the picture. And so we had a lot of holiday celebrations that occurred at the end of the year. Going forward as well, I wanted to congratulate Mr. Lawrence, and we have a couple of pictures that we will share. But here it is, the official swearing in, and it's really a memorable time. So I wanted to congratulate him on his victory. And then also share that Ms. Durkee, a picture of her being sworn in, which is what we did at our previous meeting, but the pictures had not been shared. And then going forward, I don't know, I just hang out with Serendipity throughout the holidays, but I follow the food. But they had a project, and they culminate with this project at Mount Diablo High School, and they have 2 days of serving, and it's a very real authentic experience. So really, I think our students from other schools should go to those as well. I wanted to also let you know that we continue our speaker series, that is our LCAP speaker series, and that this one that we will have this next meeting is somewhat, is kind of titled Not My Kid. And so it is teen drug use in 2017, marijuana use and beyond, a real topical conversation that we need to have, especially given recent legislation. But it's really an opportunity for parents, and students are welcome to become informed on health issues and law, etc. And it will be given by Dr. Danielle Ramo at Concord High School, 6 p.m. on the 18th. Moving forward, I don't know about you, I spent the weekend looking at this picture. going, yay, Concord somehow dodged a big bullet. Walnut Creek, Martinez, we did fairly well in the Doppler radar. And many of our staff members who live in Vacaville, Santa Rosa, etc., did not fare as well. But one thing I wanted to say is that typically the Monday after every storm weekend, I speak to Rob Greathouse probably by text, often what's going on, what happens, and board members as well share information if they're close to the schools. And I wanted to let everyone know that this is the update I received. We expect, I don't know, I haven't been outside, that it will start up again soon. It's raining. Okay, so very good, Rob. I wanted to also mention that over the weekend we found that the creek at Sequoia was overflowing, and the campus, they're kind of used to this. So Friday they were busily sandbagging their doors, making sure that their classrooms were protected. Our landscaping and custodial crews were continuing throughout the day to see what was going on, how we're doing. And then also they're currently cleaning out storm drains, gutters, and they're going to continue to do so. We also had an incident where an alarm was triggered by the weather and over the weekend next to homeowners, etc. So we're going through and really dealing with this. As we look at the news, knock on wood, we're very fortunate, and we see other schools have closed. Schools in Santa Rosa were not open today, so remind them they'll have one more day at the end of the year. I'm just kidding. But that is just important, I think, for all of us to know, because that was the biggest event that we've been dealing with. Wanted to also share that we have completed, I believe this was the last of our media labs that we've had at our high schools, and they're a place where we've had both credit recovery as well as different kinds of courses where they can get online and do things and get credits via different programs. They can use the Khan Academy and different things, and this is in the Northgate Library, and this group, boy, they are all sitting up straight. They were making constitutions, and so that was something that we saw happening this week. Also at Ignacio Valley, there was a parent night, and as they continue to prepare for International Baccalaureate and that program, they're working towards getting that information out about what that program is, who will be involved, and really sharing that with parents and the community. Looking forward, I have a dog that looks just like this, except it's brown. And I just wanted to mention that as we move forward for this, that I truly believe each year has been better, and that 2017 will be our best year yet. And I wanted to thank all of you who are a part of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now that
Okay, now we have under reports and information, speaking of best year yet and new creative ideas, Dr. Myers can explain our new regional magnet school program.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. One of the new initiatives that I alluded to, and I see the excited people in the front rows who are going to be working on this, was the idea of a regional magnet. And as we are opening Holbrook Elementary, there was this discussion that Sun Terrace, which has really been remarkable in the area of science, technology, engineering, and math, and Wren, which has had partnerships with the community that have involved murals, but also has an artistic-minded principal, that truly what we didn't want is we didn't want to rob from one school to really feed the other, and we wanted to make sure it was an opportunity to reinvent something and to make it different. So what one of the ideas is that what we're looking to do to move forward is to have a magnet school. And magnet, by definition, is something that attracts people from different places. And we also want to know that it offers a unique opportunity for in-depth studies. It has to be something that really is different than what we are providing, which is some really good instruction at our elementary schools, but what makes it stand out and unique. And so the goals of magnet schools are listed here: improved academic achievement for all, distinctive curriculum or an educational approach, diversity as a goal to aspire to, and diversity comes in many forms and looks differently in different places, and to attract, as I mentioned, a wide range of students in a real rich learning environment. And the idea that these three schools are connected here in a part of our district really takes the shape of a triangle. And so in the North Concord area that has had Holbrook closed for many years, the idea that Wren, Sun Terrace, and Holbrook will work together and will really become stronger because of this partnership. And the idea that certainly they will communicate regularly together, collaborate on big projects, and think about how they're going to give that instruction differently and really have some creative freedom to say, hey, can I try this? And the answer will be yes. So moving forward, to get a sense of what it will look like, as I kind of alluded to, at Sun Terrace, and we'll hear a little bit more from the principal, they have really been leaders in our district in the area of science, robotics, technology, engineering, and math. And as mentioned at Wren, their principal had mentioned to me, arts, have you thought of arts? And I think I've heard that in my ear for many, many months, maybe longer. And then the idea of Holbrook being a language and culture academy, because dual immersion was really something that came up quite a bit. And all of these things, I'll tell you, were the top 3 in our surveys that we did. We did both formal surveys, online, anecdotal information, and research. And what we heard are these are the 3 things that completely rose to the top, with the idea of dual immersion having some debate, very frankly, about what language will it be? Will it be a language, that is already there? Will it be a language that is completely different and unique? And so I'm looking at the idea that we're going to start with the idea of language and culture. I will confess I have a strong desire to look at doing something completely different, like a Mandarin or something that's a completely different immersion class, but there has been a lot of community support for Spanish as well. Now we do have 5 bilingual schools and 1 dual immersion, but we're not opposed to even considering more than 2 languages. So it really is a language and cultural immersion that looks at the world globally. And because we know all 3 of these things are necessary if you want to have a successful student, all 3. See if I'm going to skip over some of these parts. Okay. How we got here, I think I already said this. I always do this. Surveyed the community. These 3 themes rose to the top, and we want to focus on a progressive and enriched environment. So there will be more around these areas, connections to community, etc.
Excuse me, Dr. Martin.
Yes.
Could you briefly clarify for folks what the difference is between dual immersion and bilingual schools, please?
Okay, yes. Some would say not a lot of difference. And what we have with the dual immersion program that we've set up at Bancroft is there's somewhat of a formula for having 1/3 of the students who speak the language already, 1/3 of the students who are English speakers, and then 1/3 who might be kind of a hybrid. Perhaps they speak both, they're bilingual, and they're in the same class, and they have 50-50 instruction, so half the day they're learning content in another language, and then the other half of the day they're learning it in the native language of our district, which is English in this case. And in the bilingual courses, they're receiving bilingual instruction, and they sometimes have it more as an add-on. And so they have the content in English, and then they have some instruction of content in Spanish, but primarily that they have bilingual instruction that's at a separate time. And I look to Jose. Am I missing?
And I think the only other thing to add is that the biggest difference between the two is that in the bilingual program, all the kids are bilingual, right? The
Oh,
idea
that's
that-
right.
Yeah, that they're already speaking, when they come to us, generally they already have Spanish and English. They speak both languages. And then what we're trying to do is just give them the academics behind it, right? In a dual immersion class, the idea is that you have some that are English only, and some that are mainly Spanish, and they're kind of learning from each other. They're immersed in both languages and learning from each other. I think that's the biggest difference.
So the key word of being immersed would be you don't speak the language and you're getting that initial exposure and now you're immersed in it, much like you might if you go on a trip and you stay for a year to learn the language. Thank you for that. Okay. Looking at this as well, one of the things that we thought about is why do we want to have these regional magnet schools? And I can go through and share. When we looked at this, we had such a diverse response from our survey that we wanted to make sure that there were opportunities for students to look at any of the three as opposed to just one. So you happen to be in this, living nearby and you automatically go to STEM, and I choose that because it never happens. And then they say, well, I don't want science and technology, I want this. And so the idea that this opens it up to those who can make then an informed choice. So this increases student and parent choice. It also supports neighborhood schools because it is in that region. So it's unique in that particular feeder pattern or in that area, it supports the neighborhood school. So it's really an exciting new way of looking at it. You're not traveling completely across town, you're in that region. And then also it has the same philosophy that you might have for the pathways. So these are, pathways in elementary school that could lead to a middle or a high school that feeds upon these three areas of focus, these themes. And then also 21st century skills, language, technology, and arts. And I think this new renewed focus on arts is critical because that really helps the child become more creative, and it brings out an entirely new part of their brain. And then shared resources. So the idea is within these three schools, if there's something exciting happening at, let's say, Sun Terrace, and let's say there's an opportunity to work together as a team, that they could possibly say, okay, all the fifth graders will have an opportunity to go hear a special speaker. Or if they're going to look at a field trip that combines art and science and culture, that then they could look at doing things jointly. And so it's an opportunity to build in that way. And then also it does support this community, which is doing something completely different. And I do want to share that we have an opportunity, and is it Scott? I always forget his first name.
Captain Kelly.
Captain Kelly. Captain Kelly, who has spent his last year in space. He has Scott. Okay, I was forget his first name. He is going to be visiting Sun Terrace, and it's going to be somewhat of a kickoff for our science and technology school, and then the other schools will have an opportunity to go to that as well. So as they build their partnerships and as they work with, bringing different ideas to the school, they're going to have a way of thinking differently about who the correct audience might be. And so those are kind of the reasons that we're looking at this regional magnet. And I think that it's important to share that this could also be a prototype that we use as we look at other feeder patterns around the district. That these are probably going to be the three themes, I have to say. It was pretty unanimous, but the idea of replicating this is something exciting as well. Okay, well, I have the good fortune of inviting Chris Martin-Meyer to come up and share a little bit about what she sees at Sun Terrace. Chris.
Good evening, board. I need to tell you that Sun Terrace is very, very excited about this regional magnet. We look forward to continuing to develop what we have started the last 2 years using a blended learning approach to teach technology, engineering, and math. Our vision is to immerse our transitional kindergarten through 5th grade students in an engaging, hands-on classroom environment that will inspire them to think globally and to solve real-world challenges. The staff and I are very excited to be part of this opportunity.
Thank you. And then move.
And then also we have Cindy Goin from Wren, principal of Wren.
Hello, good evening, board. Wren Avenue is super excited to be part of this exciting opportunity. During the past 3 years, we've worked to embed arts curriculum in our upper grade, and it's been really successful. Art is an equalizer for every kind of learner, no matter what their background, what their language. And we've embedded that into the upper grades with great success and high interest and lots of passion from the kids. The work really lends itself across all the curricular areas. We can study the history of an artist and then produce their art. We can critique their work, and that's been really fun to watch the kids grapple with that and listen to them, you know, talk about someone in the cafeteria having a tough day, referring to their blue period, that it's temporary and that perhaps will change. We're very, it's adorable to hear them do it because that's a true story. We are excited to deepen our own knowledge. We've definitely read the research about the success of bringing this to our learners and how it really benefits everything from academics to student engagement, climate, culture, attendance. This is what we're all about and wanting to increase. And we're looking forward to see how we can have this take off and perhaps bring artists in or go out and visit other artists and get to museums and really immerse ourselves in this just wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, as you can see, we've got two very excited, wonderful principals, and we are in the middle of searching for their third leg, if you will.
Our third angle.
Your third. And whomever it is will have the support of two veteran strong principals as well as they start up a new school. So there's that added benefit. And from looking at what we're looking to do at Holbrook and the Language and Culture Academy, as was mentioned, really embed this throughout the curriculum so there's something that all the students can tie it to. Also look at how they would connect to other cultures. So some ideas have included having a sister school, having exchange programs, which we've seen done at middle and high, but not so much at elementary. So, you know, you don't see a fourth grader traveling necessarily, but through Skype and other technologies, bringing that experience, pen pals is what we used to do. But that same kind of concept of connecting to another culture and partnering with the universities, cultural programs that are in addition to universities that are out there, as well as to learn another language, which is really a goal of this program, yet not the first goal. The first is immersing them in the culture. And as mentioned, increase that exposure on and off campus. So as we're moving forward, I would like to ask Stephanie Roberts, who has done a great job of helping to coordinate and work on some ideas around this to discuss the registration and enrollment.
I don't have the fun part. But to answer a lot of the questions from the community, and I'm assuming from the board, people are like, well, what's the registration process? How are we dealing with enrollment? And I'm a speaker tonight, but I'm working hands-on with our student services department. So I do want to thank Felicia Stuckey-Smith and her team because this has been a very big learning process for us. And we're going to try to do it as smoothly as possible, but you know, we're going to learn as we go. So officially, Holbrook will reopen as a K-5 school. It'll be a language and culture academy. The community really wanted to call it an academy, and we thought that makes it a little bit more unique. So it'll be a K-5 language and culture academy. We will use the existing boundaries before the school closed, and that's a key area. Students living within Holbrook boundaries will be guaranteed a spot at Holbrook, but they can choose to go to any of the other feeder schools or participate in a traditional transfer process. Incoming students will register at our K registration, which will be held on February 7th at Holbrook School. And once they've registered, they will then be given an option to stay at Holbrook or choose one of the regional schools. Next one. Incoming first and fifth grade students will be given the option of two things. Some of these students have been at some of these schools for years and they will want to finish out their elementary level there. So they will get to choose. I'm going to stay at my existing school that I attended in 2016-17, or I will choose from one of the regional magnets, or they could always do the inter-district process. That's not one of these three. And then of course, students living without the Holbrook boundaries will be open. So we believe as this grows, there will be a very strong interest to potentially transfer into one of these three schools. But as of right now, once we know the numbers and then we see people that might be interested that are within the district, they can go through that transfer process as well. So the timeline, Jose is going to come up here and share a little bit about what our next steps are.
And I will share, Stephanie's absolutely correct. In the first year, sometimes you'll see smaller numbers. And so then as it gets going, we've seen that with other special programs that we've had, there starts to be a waiting list. So we're very excited about the idea they can choose from any of the three.
Okay, good evening, board. And our timeline is that we're currently working on hiring a principal. It is currently posted. And so we hope to have a principal by the end of January. That's, and you know, that's one of the kind of the big events because the principal will be very busy getting the school together and making sure we have staff and facilities are ready to go and everything else. So that's a big step. Again, continue with the facility improvements and upgrades. We want to continue our outreach and planning with stakeholders. So have some more meetings with the community to kind of really listen to their voices and hear what their interests are, and you know, try to address any concerns ahead of time. We want to also visit some model magnet programs, which of course, you know, we don't want to have to create the wheel all over when we can look at a different wheel and get a really good idea of what we'd like to do. And then, like all our schools, we want to make sure that we have technology, curriculum, and furniture in place. One of the things that we talked about is that we want to make sure that you know, technology should be a kind of base for all our schools, and so we want to make sure that along with the language, they're also going to be doing some of the technology. Okay. Okay, and so our next steps, already talked about it a little bit, is to hire a principal, hopefully by January. And I understand we have quite a few applicants, so that's always a really good positive thing in it, and I think it really speaks to Mount Diablo being a designation district, right? People are looking at us and going, "Wow, I want to go there," right? And that's what we want. Holbrook website goes live tomorrow.
Yeah. So we have we're wanting to use Holbrook, the district website, as a communication point of contact, because there's a lot of people that either aren't with like our incoming kindergartners, they aren't currently in our system, so we don't have a way of communicating with them. So tomorrow there will be an email that's sent out to any individual who resides in the Holbrook boundaries that we have an email for. Anyone that came to a meeting, just keeping them in the loop. So we're going to do a monthly communication. That communication will be housed also on the district Holbrook website. And so when people have questions, as board members, you can say, you know, most current information will be at the website. We've set up a Holbrook email account so that if people have questions, they can communicate that way, because we know things are happening. We've already started to get questions about what do I do? So that will happen tomorrow. I'm just going to add this because a little bit more logistics. A letter will be sent out on the 18th of this month for all families that live within the Holbrook boundaries, to let them make that choice. Just give us that informal. Do you plan on staying at Holbrook? Do you want to go to one of the other schools? But some of the families won't know where to choose. They're like, well, I don't know what the STEM magnet is. So we will be having some informational nights at Holbrook, at Sun Terrace, well, mostly at Sun Terrace at Wren first, and then K registration on the 7th. We're going to set up tables so that families can come in and kind of get more information about what our magnets look like. We know it may take some time, so our timeline is a little bit longer for our families. And we also realize we've got a lot of work and support that we need to provide centrally to our principals at Wren and Sun Terrace, because they need to have those conversations with their families and their staff. So we know that that's kind of that early stuff is going to happen in January, February, March. I think that was it, right? So TK Reg on the 7th, and then a regional magnet open house and event in February. May also be a repeat in March, depending on how often we need to do it.
I just want to end by saying we're very excited about the team and the people who are working towards making this happen. It's really kind of a fun thing to create, but even more importantly, we believe that it will strongly support all of the students in these 3 schools. And so rather than having the idea that we're going to fight with each other over who's going to get the most kids, we're really going to make all 3 of these schools really stand out and support each other. So we're very excited. Thank you to all of you. I know it's a school night, and when you're a principal and a teacher, it's you know, you have to face the little ones first thing, and I know we have other employees for another item that have to do the same, but very thankful for them all being here, and we present this to you tonight as our concept, and we're excited to move forward.
I just want to say it's, you know, in my experience, unusual to be able to reopen a school that's closed. Once they're closed, they're usually closed. So it's very exciting, and I thank all the staff that's put time and effort, as well as the Holbrook community, their time and effort that they put into making this happen. I'm sure you have something to say.
Oh, I have to say something. I've lived for this for 5 years. Are you kidding me? And I do want to say thank you so much. What I love about this is the way you're welcoming Holbrook back and not making it sort of adversarial, because it's been very traumatic for all the schools. You've inherited students at Wren and Sun Terraces, have other elementaries, and they're at home there. So it's very traumatic for everybody to have to sort of reorganize. But I think the spirit has been amazing, and the community couldn't be more excited. And what I enjoy hearing from the community is just the positive attitude from the other schools, from the district, and opening up to kind of work together. And so it's just amazing to me just to sit here and enjoy it. And I said when we reopen Holbrook one day, it shouldn't just reopen as just, okay, it's back, ho hum. But what Dr. Meyer and her staff, all of you, have sort of envisioned is even better than I could imagine, because the idea was to make it more powerful, but to reach out and make it broader is even better, I think. It's a good district message to send. So thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing this happen.
So I just have to add, I am so excited about this, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. I know it was all your idea. Sincerely, it really it's yeah. Well, it's obviously a group effort, but and also everyone's enthusiasm. You know, there's so many variables you're dealing with, and what a brilliant solution, I think. And having worked so long at mostly the adult and high school level, the idea of themes and truly it was like pushing a rock up a hill for however many years, but it's a hard concept, and I think to be able to start that, introducing the concept to folks, parents and children at the elementary level is super powerful. The dual immersion thing is something particularly interested in, and the little bit that I've read about it is the impact on the brain, the young minds, and being able to learn 2 languages sets them up for success in so many ways. We all should have had that opportunity. And so, and I personal interest of mine for a whole variety of reasons is around brain health and brain development, which goes back to the previous agenda item about the marijuana. The flip side of it, honestly, is I think, as educators, we have to become more aware of brain development in young children, and knowing that they're not fully formed until 25, 26, sometimes 30. So anyway, it's just so many exciting things I could babble on, but there's so many elements, and I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm because that'll definitely help it succeed. So thank you.
I'm excited to see it. I'm thinking of a few questions, so who would I address those questions to? Okay, great. You know me, I wiggle in the weeds, as someone likes to say. I know there's a principal that knows that person that says that a lot.
I'm getting my brain around the image.
All righty. Well, good way to start the new year, I think. Thank you, Dr. Meyer.
So it says action on this at the bottom of it. Do we have to approve anything of this? It says recommendation, information, action. Just information.
Thank you guys again for coming down.
Thank you.
All righty, we're now on to the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. Is there any request to remove anything from the consent agenda?
I request that we pull 13.12.
I would like to pull 13.17 and just briefly say, I appreciate staff is getting things on the agenda much more timely manner than they did before. Just a little quirk of mine, but I do appreciate it. Don't want you to think it goes unnoticed. Okay. We have a motion on the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move that the board adopt the consent agenda as printed, with the exception of 13.12 and 13.17, which will be approved by separate consideration.
All right, passes. All right. Now we move on to 14.1, which our standard statement is made.
Yes, I request that a voice vote be conducted on this item. I must recuse myself from voting on this agenda item. My spouse has recently become a paid consultant for Lakeshore Learning on a construction project in another state.
We have a motion to approve this item.
Madam President, I move the board approve item 14.1 fiscal transactions for Lakeshore Learning for the month of December 2016.
Okay.
Voice vote.
And we have a second. So we'll take a voice vote. Voice vote. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Hanson?
Yes?
And Ms. Durkee?
Yes.
All right. Passes. All right, the next item is one I pulled, and I just had a quick question for Jennifer Sachs about, this was about supplemental funding paying for a position, and it was for a campus supervisor. And I know at a previous conversation that we had had about LCAP money, supplemental funds, at one time you had told me there was targeted funds that were specific to safety issues. Is that what this funding is, do you know?
Ms. Mason, can you share which school for my
I
reference?
believe it was, I think it's around Valley View. She pulled 1317, didn't she?
Okay, 1317 is classified person,
Oh, okay.
but
It changed order.
but supervisor is classified.
But I think she wanted 1318.
1318, okay.
Which didn't show up. That's why the confusion.
I didn't think motion to rescind the first action.
So because we've already approved
I
the,
think I see it on there.
Oh,
Valley
it's on-
View Campus Supervisor.
It's on 13.18, not 13. Am I looking at
There wasn't a 13.
Pull 1317.
So we have in our
There is a campus supervisor, two campus
On
supervisors
1317.
on 1317 on
Can't we
attachment.
take separate than what we have
Okay, so that was
action
it.
on that, because that's the line.
Yes, we.
I don't know, I'm
I
just
don't have
referring
it.
to someone else.
13.
This SACS needs to see the attachment in order to be able to.
Yeah.
So I have 1317 in front of me, and it is recommended action for classified personnel. Does that correlate? And on the agenda docket that I have, new hires increase. I do not see in the attachment Valley View. I think I'm gonna phone a friend.
Okay, it changed the numbers. Okay.
So Ms. Mason is correct, and the item was moved, so, now I see Valley View and in our old agenda, but it is correct. So, campus supervisor, LCFF targeted supplemental, and it's eliminate a part-time 22 position, and then Valley View, LCFF targeted supplemental for the campus supervisor out of 0931 in the attachment. And first it says it's eliminating a part-time position and then creating a part-time 30-hour-a-week position. So it's essentially adding 8 hours, and the question is this out of targeted? And as it states targeted, it does state that it is out of targeted supplemental.
But when I'd asked the question in the past, when we were actually approving the LCAP,
Mhm.
there was a separate pot of money that was for safety. LCAP targeted for safety, and my question was,
I see.
was that this, because that would seem appropriate.
I see, and I don't know, I believe we'll ask Nancy Junior to come up regarding the safety funds within the LCAP.
Correct, and that is correct. There's some campus supervisors, both for middle school and high school, that are additional than the base grant that we pay out of the unrestricted that are for these. And what this is doing is it's adding the additional hours out of the unrestricted. The targeted amount is staying the same, but the additional is coming from the unrestricted.
Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
Oh, no, I just looking at mine.
I have an old copy.
All right. So now I will entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 14.2, which is the request to decrease full-time equivalent FTE for the 2016-17 and 2018 years.
I'll second.
Right, we have a motion in a second. All right, that passes 5-0. For communications, do we have any district organizations that want to speak tonight?
This actually, no, because we do not have any cards for that I know of.
Okay.
Unless Dr. Meyer knows of someone, no, we have none.
Okay, so we're to business and action items. 17.1, the single plans for student achievement. Dr. Ryan.
Yes, we're bringing forward for approval our single plans for site achievement, and we brought some of them models for information at the last meeting. And I believe, I'm gonna hold up a number, we're still waiting on 2, and we're having in-depth discussions with the 2 who have not turned them in yet. But these are the bulk of the site plans, and this then will give will align with the LCAP as well as then start the process where we allocate the monies according to their plans.
Right. Discussion, questions?
Just a comment that I would like to thank Jennifer Sachs, who worked through her department on helping the sites really look at the LCAP, look at their site plan, make it something meaningful, and sometimes give them a nudge when necessary. And that's sometimes a thankless job, so I wanted to thank her for that.
Always a thankless job.
Wanted to say an additional thank you for the fact that the directions for accessing these on the MDUSD website, so it just makes it even easier for parents and community members to find, so thank you for that.
I know upon my arrival in this district that this was a topic, so the gratefulness is aligned with something that we've been asking for a while, including making them accessible on the web. So thank you for recognizing that.
I will entertain a motion.
Question.
Go ahead.
Since there is not a list of those ones that we are approving here on the docket, we're avoiding naming the two that are not. So how do we, if we say approve as presented, there's not a list here to show. You're going to be bringing the other two back.
I think that's a point that needs to be made. And
Well,
we
I'm
do
not
need-
trying to embarrass folks, but our
We
dog,
have to name them.
They're
and
just
make
taking
that
a little
part of the
longer.
motion.
You know what, there are extenuating circumstances. We have to, good evening, everyone. There are extenuating circumstances. We've had administrator out at Gateway due to different reasons, as well as a new administrator over at Sequoia Elementary. So there's nothing that they didn't do, it's just a timing issue, and we want to give them the support and the attention that they need in order to make sure the document is one that is well put together, comprehensive, one that's been through several sets of eyes. So those two will be brought forward at the end of the month, and they can be approved then, if you're willing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You want a motion? I'll be happy to make a motion. Madam President, I move that the board approve the 2016-17 single plans for student achievement as presented in terms of not having a list. Let me say it this way. Approve the single plans for student achievement for all the schools except Gateway and Sequoia Elementary, who are still in the process of finalizing those.
Second.
We have a motion, she said.
And a second. Okay, that passes 5-0-0. So, it's my understanding that we have more staff that are here. I believe on the transportation, reorganization of transportation. We're just doubting our numbers on our agenda now, but it should be, I'm going to exercise my authority to move up 17.10, which is reorganization of transportation department. Okay, so we have a reorganization of the district transportation management staff being proposed. The reorganization objectives were to provide students and school communities with improved services. Recommendations are to realign management positions within the transportation department to create a new management structure. This proposed plan eliminates 4 classified management positions as well as 1 Teamsters Local 856 position. It creates 3 classified management positions as well as 2 Teamsters 856 positions. Job descriptions and salary placements for the reorganization of the transportation department, effective upon approval, and we are being asked to discuss this and approve it tonight. Is there any staff input?
Yes, I would like to ask if Wayne Oatkin and I believe Charlie McAllister could please come to the podium, or perhaps just one of the two.
I'm gonna come and stand up here beside him in case of a quick question.
Good evening. As the board is aware, in the mid part of 2016, we commissioned a study of transportation in the district. And the study was completed and recommendations were made. We've had a chance to discuss with the board and others some of the recommendations that were included in the summary that President Mason Chairman Mason just mentioned. The reorganization that is outlined in your agenda is unusual in many ways. I think it's very effective in terms of delegation of authority and responsibility at the same time. I think it'll be a very responsive oversight in terms of the transportation office, in terms of the relationship with the drivers. I think that our planning in terms of scheduling of trips, particularly in the area of extracurricular transportation, in the area of what we contract out versus what we do inside, I think that would be very positive as well. I think an unusual part of the analysis that was completed just days before the agenda was published is this reorganization actually saves the district some money. So we're spending some on one hand, but there's actually a savings in terms of the reorganization, small savings that's involved. Basically, if I might just summarize, in the past, in the transportation department, the functions of routing, scheduling, and dispatching and driver supervision have been combined. That's a very difficult role to perform, and very uncommon in the transportation industry of public schools. Now there will be two supervisors that the drivers will look to, one for regular education and one for special education. The general education individual, because we don't do too much regular home school transportation for general education, will also have the responsibility for extracurricular trips, co-curricular trips, safety and training as well. Under each of those individuals, the special education supervisor, there'll be a router dispatcher with that individual and another one under the general education and co-curricular trips supervisor. The other part of the reorganization has to do with the garage itself. There's really two components in terms of student safety. One is the condition of the vehicle which the children ride to and from school and other activities. The other is the training and professionalism of the drivers. This reorganization combines the function of the garage, the repair of the buses, the safety of the buses, under one administrator, that is the director of transportation. It was split between maintenance and operation, transportation before maintenance and operation, picking up responsibility for the mechanics. This reorganization will result in the elimination of one lead mechanic position, one of two, and the creation of a vehicle maintenance manager position that's completely full responsibility for the garage itself. So that's the reorganization. During the course of the study, and because of accounts from others familiar with our transportation department, it was really noted that the two areas, as far as bus drivers are concerned, in terms of mechanics in the garage, that the salaries in Mount Diablo were incredibly non-competitive to the point of unfairness. And it was addressed in the study. We've talked about it administratively, and we did some work which we've shared with the board before in terms of where we stand in this particular region. Mount Diablo has found itself in a position of really training, paying bus drivers to become trained for other districts. Just before the holidays, again, we lost like 4 drivers to neighboring districts. Since we've opened school again after the holidays, There's been days when we've had 9 to 13 drivers, we've been 13 drivers short. This involved kids waiting at schools for buses to double back and this type of thing. We really think that with the recommendations included in the agenda regarding to reclassification of the driver's salaries and the mechanics' salaries, that should really change. And we'll be able to have an adequate substitute list. We'll be able to retain drivers. We'll be able to retain the best. And through this discussion, we have talked to some of the drivers, of course. And now they're elated. They're a very deserving group. See that quite a few of them are here this evening. So we would look forward to your support of the recommendation. Okay. Any questions?
I'd just like to acknowledge that this is long overdue, and I really appreciate you coming in, because I've said that the district's done a great job since Dr. Mars come on board of going through a lot of departments, and the last area is maintenance and operations with transportation. And one of the good things I think that happened right away was the separation of transportation, putting it back to its own department. It's a unique kind of situation, and it's a critical situation because it's one that people are going to hear from when kids are, not picked up or arriving at school. So I think the whoever has really masterminded so many of these components, it's been great to separate that back out as it used to be, and to acknowledge the importance of this, because yes, we've been known for training drivers for other districts, or AC Transit and other places, and we need to retain that good staff and not have them abandon us. So I really appreciate the look you've taken at this and the willingness to kind of separate off transportation and make it its own noteworthy department.
I mentioned too, we had a chance to meet Charlie McAllister when she was employed as interim director here a month or so ago, and she's just done fabulous work, and I think she's earned the respect of the drivers in a very short period of time. And she's a real value added to the district. So thank you to Charlie. Okay.
I just wanted to say one word. In this whole scheme of things, I've more or less been the messenger, the data collector, sharing what the salaries were in the neighboring districts. And Ms. Durkee, you were talking about personal rock up a hill. Phyllis and I meet every Monday. She's our instructor that's in the office, kind of leads the other two instructors that we have. And every Monday we meet, and every Monday we're pushing that rock. And so I just wanted to say thank you. I collected the data, you all listened, you took action, and I'm very grateful for that. And today, our students and our employees are winners. So thank you.
Motion. I'd be happy to make the motion that the board approve the reorganization of the transportation department, including new job descriptions and the decrease of FTE and reclassification of positions within that department.
Second. Okay, motion in a second.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Does the language of the motion include the abolishment of certain positions and the changes in the fiscal impact?
Yes, it's the increase, decrease of FTE. There was a list attached with the breakdown of cost and positions.
I just want to make sure the motion is adequate.
Yes,
that we're
that is-
understood that all of that is there.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. I'm not opposed to it, don't worry.
Okay, that passes 500.
Is staff here for other items for 17? No? Okay. But I do want to thank the other group that has to get up even earlier. Good to see all of you.
All right, so we're back on task for our budget development calendar. The Ed Code requires that the Board of Education to adopt a budget for the 2017-18 school year and submit it to the county superintendent of schools by July 1. In order to ensure that the district meets this requirement, a calendar of major development activities has been prepared. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move the board approve the budget development calendar for 2017-18.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion or questions? Okay, we will take a vote. Okay, that passes 5-0. And now we are on to the audit report. And this is a 2015-16 audit report. And we have a request to speak from Debbie Woods.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, public. We are here once again. Another audit, more findings. Guess what? The letter that I sent to you in regards to the ASB and the in-compliance is still on the list. I was told back when I first wrote you the letters that everything would be handled. Well, if you look at page 68 through 76 or 77, it has not been handled. It is continuously the same information. We are still using ASB as a pass-through. We are still sending our treasurers to the ASB conference. We have still not opened a clearing account for Mount Diablo High School. And I am still standing here telling you that you are out of compliance. And again, I have heard nothing. So I don't know how much you need to be told or how many audits you need to have before you do something about our fiscal department. I'm here again to say, once again, you are out of compliance. Do we not care about the Ed Code? When will we get it fixed? Thank you.
Hopefully your questions will be answered in the presentation.
I would like to ask if, I believe Nancy and Wayne could please come up to give the audit report. And I look forward to discussing the items that we would have in compliance, as well as some of the actions that we plan to take to correct any out of compliance items.
Try to take you through the audit and highlight a few things. The first slide is just kind of an overview of everything the auditor looks at when they come in. It's an audit program that's developed by the state, and the emphasis in terms of areas of focus changes from time to time. But the core areas stay the same. This particular audit report includes 4 findings, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time this evening, in addition to any questions the board might have. The reason I think we need to spend our time with the findings is because there were really no audit adjustments recommended in terms of the general ledger accounts and the district's ending balances, those kinds of things. So we want to jump right to the four findings that relate to 2 of the 12 areas that the auditor reviews. When the auditors conduct the audit and they sit down and they discuss the findings that they've come up with and the results of the examination, they then say, do we have any significant deficiencies. That's a very specific term. And CPA language, material weaknesses, another specific term, or instances of non-compliance. And so we don't have any specifics there in terms of there was included in the audit in terms of designation. The items that they did comment on in terms of their findings are material, and we need to talk about them. The first finding is known as 001, and the audit ends on page 68 we just heard about. There's two findings regarding student body funds. 001 is the first and 002 is the second. And while there's large paragraphs and in some cases 10 to 12 points under one of these, I've tried to summarize it here so you get the main drift of what the auditors are trying to illustrate for us and what they're recommending. First one in 001, the focus of 001 is on oversight. 002 is having a policy, procedure, a handbook, and training in place that says what you specifically want done throughout the district uniformly at every school. So with the first one, what the auditors noted is they basically said that currently there's no review process of bank statements in place. There's no reconciliations that we can find, and no review by the district of financial statements for the schools. Pretty serious charge, and from what we just heard, it must have been something that the auditors have mentioned before to some extent. The auditor's recommendation was that an employee in the business office be responsible for the oversight of ASB accounts. Historically, it's been a few years now, but based on the best research I could come up with, there really hasn't been a focus from fiscal services in this area. And it occurred when the position of internal auditor was eliminated. And that was the beginning of the budget crunch, which started 7 years ago. So somewhere between 2005 2006, that position was eliminated, and for all intents and purposes, oversight stopped. The schools do still send in some statements. They do send in some bank accounts that some are reconciled, some are not. They're filed, but they're not carefully reviewed. There's no visits from fiscal services out to the schools periodically to do some checking or provide some support. The training programs that should be in place. Staff in schools attend some conferences occasionally and this type of thing, but in terms of the district's effort, really not much is happening. There is a position in the accounting department that's currently unfilled. I believe it's a fiscal analyst 2 position. And part of the recommendation of the staff here from Ms. Juner is that they concur with the auditors. There is this vacant position. We haven't had a great deal of success in filling that position in terms of individuals have been able to pass the examination that we use through the personnel department. It's proposed that we would realign that position in terms of purpose, and it could be converted to an internal audit position. If nothing else, it could be really directed at student body accounting. But one way or the other, we will fill that position and we will direct it at this particular need in terms of oversight. Any questions on that?
I'd just like to underscore it because I've been saying it for 6 years that I've been on the board. And every time I participated in meeting with the auditor to go through, he usually kind of does an interview and talks about what are some of the issues. And student body funds have been one that had brought up my very first year on the board and said, because I was a former high school principal, I kept hammering over the idea that what's the communication with the school sites, what's the training for administrators, because you become a principal doesn't mean that you actually go through that sort of budgetary training. And I would use examples in the training I did with administrators for 10 years. I'd hold up the Contra Costa Times at the time and say, here's a front page article on a principal who's just put on administrative leave for misuse of student body funds. She went out and bought a whole set of picnic tables using the student body money. She got put on administrative leave and fired. And so the importance of the students, and you know from Hunter probably being in leadership, you own that money, and it really needs to go through the students. So I think the auditor's recommendation is one to heed, because that continues to be a hole. And every year I've talked to the auditor, I think I've met with the auditor 3 times in the last 6 years, is to say student body accounts are one of the 2 or 3 ways a principal can be fired quickly. And just for our own protection and for the protection of the students who raise those funds, you know, we really, I love the idea that's been presented here and that you're underscoring, is that we find somebody more dedicated to that position to keep us out of trouble.
You make a good point. And you can have the best accounting system and monthly reconciliation to the penny and all those kinds of things. But the other side of it is, what are you spending the money? What are you spending the money for? And is that expenditure documented and approved in the student body minutes? So there's that side to it, as well as just accounting for the cash, this type of thing. You mentioned the conversation with the auditors in terms of exit interview or whenever it might have taken place. You think student body funds, relatively speaking, is a very small amount of money compared to a $500 million general fund budget. Why the focus? Well, the focus, it's unusual because you have so many people involved in that. It's one of the 2 places in public schools where there's people can get their hands on cash. Yeah. And the money belongs to the kids, but the state law says the school districts are responsible for it, this type of thing. So it's a clear responsibility, and we should do everything we can to ensure that the stewardship is what it should be.
And I think the second part is what you mentioned in here, which is the reconciliation of bank statements. And some of what I see in the audit report, they threw in one example, I won't name what it is, but in this report it talks about a school that was authorizing expenditures without reconciling, without even sort of an awareness of the accounting of those funds, and they were waiting for a bank statement to come in to see what was expended, and it was a little frightening because of the public fund aspect, or public funding aspect of this. So I think anything we can do around that accountability of those funds is critical.
Okay, with recommendation number 2, basically here the auditors identified 12 items that really should be the cornerstone of any handbook policy guideline for every school in the district. And the list that they have included on page 69, plus some other things in terms of that we'll develop in conjunction in working with the auditors. We come up with an ASB, student ASB policy manual that staff are accountable for, will train to that document, will audit to that document, which is the second piece.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there, I had thought there was information in the board policy regarding student body accounts, so will we be looking at that piece also in addition to the handbook?
There's information from about 6 different sources that'll be included or referenced in that policy. Okay. One of them is the board policy, as well as the education code.
We have provided the board policies throughout these years that I've been in fiscal to make sure that it doesn't have the detail that is necessary. So, and we've also had the auditors come in and do training specifically for the organized and the unorganized. So it's just not the fine tuning. So like Ms. Hanson said, the principals need to be aware of what's the requirements and making sure everything's pre-approved and all that. So it's the really detailed stuff.
And I just have one question because it's always been a mystery to me. Do all of the schools use the same bank for their student body accounts, or do they use different banks across the district that are convenient for their location?
For student body funds, they use district banks, just different banks, whichever one they choose. The only one that we require them to use is for the clearing account, where we have control over that. But their student body and even their revolving, it's up to the school if they choose to go someplace else. Originally, we were all under the Concord Federal Credit Union when it was that. But,
thank you.
Okay, recommendation number 3 is a departure from our topic of student body. And it really it deals with 3 different subject areas. The first area addressed is, I mentioned the staff was unable to provide adequate support documentation for several account balances from prior years. They weren't specific in their and their finding there, but it related to CalPERS, the district share and the employee share, and workers' compensation. And the balances they're talking about go back quite a number of years. Nancy, what did you mention?
like 2004-5.
Way back to 2004-5. So in the accounting records back then, I think the total amounts were correct, but the distribution of those amounts between employee share and district share is not fully reconciled. I think that issue has been there again for a while, and it will be addressed, and that will get reconciled this year before the next audit. The second item they noted is the revolving bank accounts at some sites and the cafeteria fund have not been reconciled consistently. Now that's another area where there's there's a use of funds, cash funds locally, although it's not like student body that so many people are involved in the action. So I think the records there are a little more complete, but it certainly needs to be amped up from where it is right now. That's another area that it would be logical to assign, again, certainly to an internal audit position if we converted the existing vacancy to that. The third thing they noticed is something that you'll see in a lot of reports throughout the state. It deals with supporting schedules for capital assets. That has to do with a CPA a requirement that they were able to make real for schools a number of years ago. It has a focus on fixed asset accounting. And fixed asset accounting in school districts really doesn't matter. We don't pay taxes, we don't depreciate assets and this type of thing. If we have a school, whether it's paid for or whether it's not, it doesn't affect whether we can meet our payroll that month, this type of thing. But the requirement is there, and there's some old questions about capital assets acquired prior to 13-14, improvements we make from year to year as we go along, as we add to campuses, build buildings, whatever. It is possible to process to the point where it's acceptable to your auditors, and that's then a benchmark, and you move from that point forward. And that would be the objective for the future years. Staff response addresses each one of those areas accordingly. And the final finding deals with cafeteria fund cash reserves. This is really kind of humorous. I don't know if you had a chance to understand it, but there is a regulation that says the cafeteria shouldn't maintain a fund balance that exceeds 3 months average expenditures. And that 3 months average is a little over $4 million, a little over $4 million, and the balance exceeded that by 129,000. And the program always anticipates going from one year to the next. I think this year there was a 5% increase in salaries, and that's the food services program is to be self-sufficient and not be a drain on the general fund, or not use money to support that program that could otherwise be used for the education of students. So as a result of that, the program needs to file another spending plan with the state. There's no penalties or anything else. Explain what we're doing and how that money will be used up in the coming year. So that's the highlights of the findings.
Another question. They didn't visit on that, going back to the student body counts, visit every site, did they?
No.
No, they would pick a sampling.
Right.
Customarily, they visit every high school every year, and then they choose between the elementaries and middles, depending. Sometimes they
every
do.
high school?
They did every high school.
They went to every high school? Okay.
Yeah. And then again, sometimes they'll revisit middle or high school or elementary, but most of the time they try to spread out, especially with our 29 elementaries.
I think in closing, this effort, well, the impetus is in the Fiscal Service Division. It's something that reaches into all of the schools and all of the departments. And with student body accounting, it's an unusual situation because there's always a certain amount of resistance from the big boys downtown at the district office interfering with what we're doing in the schools. Other schools welcome it. Most of the principals welcome it. But we have to have the right people in the right places to make those relationships work. And in terms of what we're doing, as far as the closing statements, we're committed to continue collaboration with the schools to make this work for everyone. We need to establish the necessary procedures that I mentioned. And I'm sure that we'll have a very, very different result in next year's audit.
Just one thing building off of that, because that's exactly what it's about. If the idea of what I like about this position that's been recommended and that you're referencing is it's not about gotcha. It's actually about how you work legally, how you actually keep a position, keep your job, and feel supported and do the right thing. And that's what I like about it, is I've been asking over the years for the educational component for administrators, but it's really a support and a collaboration. And I think that's the focus of that position, so that people don't feel it's micromanagement and we're waiting for you to catch you doing the wrong thing and slap your hand.
Right.
It's how to be proactive and help you do the right thing and have somebody you can phone and not feel you're sitting out there on your own trying to figure it out and then you're afraid to ask. Because we've worked hard, I think, over the last few years to change the culture to one of support and not a gotcha culture. And I think
This should be a part of our partnership.
Absolutely.
And that's the way we should view our auditors as well.
Absolutely.
Those of us that sit here.
Yeah. So that's an important clarification. Ms. Mino?
So I have two questions. The first is in regards to specific comments that were made from Mount Diablo High School. Will there be conversations on how to assist in that situation?
Yes, I'm getting a report from the auditors because there was multiple auditors that went on the visits. So I will be getting the information of who they met with and what was the issue and all of the detail of those findings so that we can address them.
And then because I'm involved in another organization that's volunteer-based and we have students and student officers, I'm curious whether or not the student officers at the high schools in particular and or the middle schools are ever involved in the accountability process and learning for how to manage money. It's part of the
you know, so we do not provide that, but I don't know if the student that has gone to conferences may have known. Do they, for Associate Student Body Leadership, do they deal anything about
You're our expert on our.
cash management or any processes in?
I know YB in particular, I don't think a lot of high schools do this, but we have an exec board, which is run a lot like this actually, and we take all our bills that the clubs and anything that happens on campus, and we have to approve it, like any kind of checks, requests, or any kind of fundraising forms that have to fill out have to go through us, so we kind of learn like how to handle money and like we're aware of all the account balances and like if people are able to be making the spendings that they want to be doing, so we kind of just slowly build up.
I think there are some schools that do it and others that may not.
I think it would be.
They would all do that.
Yes, that's what our goal would be.
Actually, what's shocking as a former high school principal is you say student body accounts are minuscule. There's a lot of money, a lot of cash that pours through, especially a high school with a lot of extracurricular activities. And it's so important to engage the students in that ownership and that process. Because you can, I mean, it's a lot of cash coming through sometimes. It's so overwhelming.
Mr. Lawrence, do you have a comment?
Well, I had a question. Typically, I think we've listed which two board members are members of the audit committee, and I don't see it listed here. Can we share who those are? Sure.
I'm not sure who the current ones are actually.
Well, actually, what it has been is, as board president, you're usually interviewed. That's the capacity I've been in. Is the last two audits, the auditors contacted me as board president, and I just sat through. But we do have an audit committee on the top. I think it's on tonight's.
Last year, it was Brian and Barbara.
And so I don't think we,
Go ahead.
in previous years, we had been contacted and had gone through this, and that didn't happen this year.
Correct, it did not. And it was just an oversight. We wanted to get it to the board so that we can move on to the other things that are happening in our district. So, but it will be something that we'll go back to.
Because it's a separate second kind of interview that Mrs. Mason will probably go through too. But thank you for asking that because it is a committee.
Right. And that usually then the board members can talk and get the questions.
I think it might be good to convene that committee soon. I know in looking at the process from with a fresh set of eyes, I think it might be time to go out with an RFP again to try to find a CPA firm that's a good match for a district this size.
Well, we're doing our committee appointments tonight. So
Okay.
there you go. Right on task.
Thank you.
Was there any parting things you wanted to add, Dr. Meyer, before we?
I think they were said, but I did want to emphasize that this position, as they look at the ASB, they can also be a part of working with the ASBs, going out to the classes and working with the students and the adults on the campus to help train. And what you described is what I've seen at other campuses as a model. So if there are any that are not doing that, it'd be a great thing for all of you to share. I know you participate in district-wide meetings around ASB, so perhaps that would be a great place to share what's working.
Yeah, it was just recently brought up to me that not all schools do this, so we can great really surprised me.
Sure.
Yeah, is the PTA training? Is training?
Oh, yeah, but it's not to this detail.
Oh.
We do students work.
So I will entertain a motion. Unless there's more discussion needed.
Let's look down at the bottom. Madam President, I move that the board approve the audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2016.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote. 401 vote on that. Thank you. Next, 7.4 agreement with MX Inc.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to explain briefly, since I was a member of the audit committee, but I didn't have access to the audit, that's why I chose to abstain, so I just wanted to state that.
Thank you. Okay, staff is requesting approval for an agreement with MX Inc., DBA Chalk Schools to provide automated office forms and workflow. Dr. Meyer, you have a report on this or just straight forward? Okay. Services include automatic collection of data, routing and tracking responses and approvals. In addition, this service will provide unlimited electronic signatures, interactive form fields, pre-filled data fields, and reusable access. They will upload and convert existing documents and will provide efficiency to save time and money by improving workflow and decreasing errors due to lost or missing paperwork, inaccurate information, and multiple submissions of the same form. This will support vital collaboration between departments and sites and allow for necessary oversight of processes. So, recommendation is to approve this agreement. Do we have any questions or discussion?
Well, I asked a question earlier about whether this was strictly for maintenance and operation, or if it was for other forms, or what will we begin small and then expand, etc.?
Yes, our original plan, what we plan to do is to start with our fiscal services and our personnel department. So we will be able to track different procurements along the way and see where they are throughout, as well as track hiring so we can see where they are in the process. And so the plan is to start small with those two, working together, looking at the same information, and then move out to other departments as we become more proficient. And I love applause when I'm speaking about technology. And so the idea is to really get good at it and then transfer it out. We currently have another system with maintenance and operations, but this may be something that we gravitate towards, and it can truly track any form within our system. So, we just talked about ASB and looked at different things, and so ideally we're going to match them to our greatest needs. So that will certainly be a way that we will determine what comes next.
So as the use expands across the district to other departments, will the cost increase? Is this a base cost or is it?
I understand it is by volume, so the cost would increase as we move forward.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay. We have a motion?
See, hearing none, I'll make one. Madam President, I move that the board approve the agreement with MX Inc., DBA Chalk Schools.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. While we're waiting, Ms. Hunter, I should have told you that anytime you think you need to go work on homework, but I'm glad you stayed to answer the question about the ASB.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. All right. That passes 5-0-0. And we have now new membership recommendation for Community Advisory Committee. Do you have any speakers to speak on this?
She didn't turn in a card, but she's sign languaging.
I was just gonna say, after you put her, I'll come up and speak on her behalf.
Okay.
Okay, so we're being asked to approve a new member to the CAC.
Or if you want me to talk. Is she here?
Okay. Well, you've waited patiently.
And the applicant for consideration is, I'm gonna try this, Malika Sharif. Okay.
Madam President, I would move that the board approve the applicant by Malika Sharif to serve on the CAC committee.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Okay, we have 500. And now I'll be budgeting.
I'd like to thank you all for approving Malika's membership. She's going to be an incredible asset to our Community Advisory Committee. By the way, for recording purposes, Denise Lambert, Vice Chair, Community Advisory Committee for Special Education. Malika is very enthusiastic and very informed about special needs. And she has been doing some work with the Care Parent Network too, so we're very excited to have her, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Tesoro grant for STEAM mobile truck for the district. This sounds exciting. Do you want to tell us about this, Dr. Meyer?
I can. Through our Director of Innovation and our Department of Educational Technology, and through our Curriculum Department and through our Teachers on Special Assignment, our TOSAs, we have been hosting day-long science days. And so with Jan Roberson, who is our science TOSA, they have gone to different elementary schools throughout the district, and they have packed up their cars and they have put all of the science equipment within tubs and carried them out to the school for the day, created different stations, and really have the students experience hands-on technology. So an idea was sprouted where we would have a truck that in essence is kind of like a moving van where they load up all of these materials and drive from school to school and have an MDUSD STEAM truck. And through our grant office, you can see this touches many different departments. Well, first I must say, to the credit of this department, they went to different places that had trucks throughout the cities that we serve. And they got a big no. And we won't mention where exactly, but we then went to Tesoro, and Tesoro then agreed to fund this idea to really promote MDUSD on the side, much like they promote Move to Virginia on the U-Haul. We would have Mount Diablo information, pictures of kids, and really emphasizing STEAM. And so this vehicle will be funded and supported through a grant from Tesoro. And we're very excited about how it will bring equity to schools that either don't have space, who don't have the same equipment, who don't have the opportunity to try these materials. So we're very excited about this, wanted to share this with the board and the community, and recommend that it be approved.
Thank you.
I just clarified, it's just elementary schools.
I believe some middles have, but they tend to have more of their own materials. So at this point, it has been primarily for the primaries.
They still have to load it for each trip?
Well,
Because it's a truck, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it will be loaded, but rather than having it in multiple cars, it will all be in one place. So they will go to the school, unload it, perhaps in their multi-use room, and then when they're done for the day, load it back, and then house it centrally in a place where they can keep that truck filled.
It's very interesting
Even not-
idea. Who's driving it?
Well, we actually, that was actually a question I had, and I was informed that it, well, it could be any of us, because what I discovered is that the size of this will be something that does not need a Class C license. And so in a former life, I had to drive lots of kids in the back of a large, long van where you needed a special license, but this is going to be the size that will not need that, because I asked that same question. So any of us, I'm looking at you guys.
It's a special project for sure. You have a director of special projects.
Stephanie Mobile.
Although really any of you are at possibility, right? Not at risk, at possibility.
Well, I don't think this is a normal Tesoro grant, but it's very creative. And I have to say kudos to Tesoro, because I ran into a gentleman from Tesoro at a Diablo Valley College, state of the college address. And he was so jazzed and excited about how he could support our district. So this is great, because it sounds like one of those projects where we reached out, not me, but the district reached out to them and hey, we're open to it.
And I want to share right before break, Jonathan Egan and Adam Welcome were typing away to apply, and Tesoro was very supportive, and we're very excited about really making an efficient process that can get these activities in the hands of students.
Excellent. Well, it's an interesting idea. And you'd like to have a motion to approve? I move that we approve the submission of the Tesoro grant and acceptance if awarded.
Second.
Okay.
Say got silence on.
Yes. There we go, and that passes 5-0.
I was just trying to envision this.
She's getting so excited.
Do you have visions of yourself driving a truck?
I was thinking, this is just board member, very exciting.
All righty. You're on a job description for academic data technician, which I think was brought to us before for information.
Yes.
Now it's tonight for confirmation. If there's any discussion or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move the board approve the job description for academic data technician.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Because I think it's a great idea to update this position. I love the history of it. It came from way back in the testing days, and some of these pieces that are now being modernized. It's great.
That passes 5-0. All righty. We are classified personnel requesting increase, decrease full-time equivalent funding for school year 2016-17. Is there a board report with this one?
Just a statement that this is an adjustment in the budget of that department based on what you just voted on.
That's what I was just referencing, the money part.
Yep.
It's just up to you.
So I move to eliminate the vacant test program assistant position and create an academic data technician position.
Is there a second? Yes.
But that is the request, right? I mean, to me, it's not. There's no reference to what we are doing in the sentence for the recommendation. It could be anything.
We're fine either way with those motions.
And that passes 5-0. And now we have Board of Education Committee assignments. And we have a speaker, Susie Hall Whitney.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon. It's nighttime. Good evening. Hi, I've been waiting, but I am here to talk about Betsy DeVos. And I have a few reasons why you should call your senator and oppose her nomination as our Secretary of Education. She has no education degree, no teaching experience, no working experience in the school environment, never attended public school or state university, never put her own children in public school, does not believe in or support public education, believes that public education teachers are overpaid. She supports for-profit education, invested $200 million in Christian schools and organizations, and she doggedly advocates funneling money out of public education and into for-profit Christian-based education. And have you called your senators?
Susie, I'm so sorry that you sat here all that time because that was really public comment. It could have been done at the beginning of the meeting. But your card was just kind of misfiled because it was misunderstood what it was for.
Yes.
But we appreciate getting your input. And as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, we can't really interact because it's not something on the agenda.
Right.
But we have duly recorded your comment and we thank you for your time.
Okay, all right.
Thank
The right
you.
thing,
Okay.
Wednesday.
Okay. Now we're on Board of Education Committee assignments. Or is there any comments or arguments or whatever?
Just for me personally, on the proposed one,
Uh-huh.
I'm a member of I'm a representative for the Equity Advisory and Disproportionality team, which I would be delighted to do, except I would have a challenge that it's a monthly meeting at 3:30, so I would have difficulty making that. So I would certainly be happy to swap with another board member, or if someone else wanted to take it. Otherwise, I could potentially call in for the meetings, but I would have to leave San Francisco by 2 on a monthly basis, and that would be a challenge. Or I could perhaps look at finding someone as a proxy. So those would be the 4 choices, but I would have difficulty being there in person on a monthly basis for that meeting.
Okay. Any other concerns? Any interest in anybody's swap? What is easier for you to make?
We could certainly do it.
Well, let's go with it the way it is, and then if it works out later, we can make adjustments.
Certainly. Thank you.
That's only my recommendation. So, yep.
Well, I didn't turn in my sheet because I just sent out the information about the board committee assignments and never actually made my request. I'm flexible on that, so I'm gonna move that the board approve the 2017 board committee assignments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion before we vote? They're ready over there. I like this. We vote.
That was a quick, short motion, that's why.
Trying to keep us moving.
Yes, I am. And that passes 5-0. All right, we've already dealt with our transportation department, now we have business service departmental reorganization.
Yes, if I could ask Wayne Oaken to come up. He is he's going to discuss what we're going to look at with our maintenance and operations, which was mentioned earlier, as well as Measure C. Thank you.
I'm too old for it coming out, and that's what it feels like. Anyway, we've been proceeding with various other business service areas in terms of trying to, realign with an objective of effectiveness and economy in some cases. The one big area that we haven't addressed yet is the folks in the unit that's carried the ball in terms of Measure C. And the board's well aware that we've sold now the last $38 million worth of entitlement on that measure. And over the next few years, a couple of years, we'll be able to spend that money in wise projects that will benefit the district for years to come. But that money will dry up. There may be consideration in a later date for additional bonds, but we're looking at repositioning the district in terms of tasks that will be required on an ongoing basis, maybe with those same people, but with an organization that looks very similar to the one that we have in place right now. In terms of repurposing We're considering three things, basically. We're looking at the continuation of the bond program, for one. And we're looking at leaving that core function in such a way, in such a condition, that it can easily be reactivated should the district pass another bond in the future. Even the consideration of proposing another bond, the information that's developed and widely distributed in the community, the accuracy of that information and the promises that you make is really dependent upon some very competent people behind the scenes like those individuals. The other thing we're looking at is, it's similar in a way, but it has to do with Proposition A. That proposition holds a lot of potential, particularly in this day and age in terms of the popularity of short-term bonding. Bonding that's paid off within 3 to 5 years, that is so low cost that 95 to 98 cents of every dollar goes to program, not to the expense of the bond or to interest. We're looking at that, and then finally we're looking at long-range planning, and that will include anything from annual budget projections, 5-year budget projections, long-term budget projections, monitoring and creating a relationship with your local cities and county regarding trends and development. I think probably the flagship example of that would be the repurposing of the naval weapons facility and property. And staying really on top of that, being a player from day one once it starts getting serious. And all in all, I mean, you need annual budget projections. Your budget is based on that, your staffing, personnel, HR department, critical information. You need that just to do business. Long term, you've got to plan ahead. The first agenda item we talked about tonight in terms of reopening Holbrook. Decisions like that are contingent upon good information in terms of the rationale and for what you're doing with the community. Going back to Measure A for a minute, it's interesting because there's things that need to be done. They're just not like one project. Boom, you do it and it's finished and you begin to use it. They have other kinds of needs with facilities that require sustainable funding. I know there have been folks that have spoken before the board over time here just in the last year since I've been with you. They're talking about roofing. Well, districts generally don't spend bond money with roofing because bond money is not sustainable. You get a $280 million bond and then you spend it and it's gone. Roofing needs to happen every single year. You need to have a plan. So this is what we do. Here's the condition of every roof in the district. Here's the year we think that we should be addressing that type of thing. You have other sustainable needs in terms of Measure A. We're doing a lot with technology in this district. We're buying a lot of equipment, not only for staff, but a lot of it for kids that has a 3 to 5 year life. No money's being put aside for a refresh on that technology. Measure A can be managed and designed and directed to meet some of those needs. So as we look towards running out of Measure C and moving ahead, it's some of those areas we'd like to refocus and address in the reorganization of the Measure C folks. So it would be more of a function of long-range planning and facilities. The other thing that's probably worth addressing or considering is a division responsibility between, say, maintenance operations and some of these other facility things we're talking about. Measure A folks they're used to dealing with, let's bring on the portables, let's run them like plumbing, electricity. They're facility type people. They're used to building things. And we have a big enough job, I think, in maintenance to do what we need to do there. Focus on taking care of what we have. So any new projects, new improvements, whether they be fields, whether they be refreshing the appearance of the buildings from the street, things that truly market our schools. Those kinds of things that we reside over in this newly created facilities in Long Ridge Planning Equipment. That's just a bit of what we've been working on, and that's when it's more involved in some of the other things we've talked to you about. We'll be coming back to you, and we'll be looking at the appropriate funding sources for it and stuff like that. And in the meantime, what we've done is we're trying to recognizing that the Measure C funds are going to dry up in the very foreseeable future, maintaining as many vacant positions as we can in that department, so when we restructure, we're not having to lay people off. If anything, once we get it all in focus, if we need people, we can always hire people, but we're trying to maximize the number of vacancies right now.
They're all moving over to, because we're reopening Holbrook, they're moving over to maintenance and operations, or moving back actually to maintenance and operations, correct?
The Measure C staff, they're going to be moving into Glenbrook.
Where? Glenbrook? Got it.
How many people are currently employed as Measure C staff?
I don't know if Tim's still here. I think there's probably maybe 10 or 12.
Oh, Hammy's working.
Trying to escape.
We
weren't escaping, we were listening.
Tim, there is a question regarding what's the number of staff you have on board right now?
Right now, we have currently 6 full-time positions, and then we had some technology positions that recently transferred over. So right now we have 6 full-time and 2 half FTE positions.
Can I ask here, because I didn't realize you're moving to Glenbrook, you know, we talked about this earlier about going back to maintenance and operations. So what's the program, what's Spectrum using over there? Is there kind of a division of, because Spectrum's still at Glenbrook. Is there a division of?
There are vacant rooms,
And I know they're
and
vacant
Spectrum,
rooms,
much
but
like Inova, has.
is it set up easily to, like you're out in the portables or something? There's a whole wing back there. There's no portables.
I think probably
They're not portables, they're actually on foundations. There's a whole wing in the back.
Sounds like I think probably what we can do is just take a site plan and get that out to the board and kind of identify where different groups are going to be housed over there. We're also, there is space, and we're not only moving people, but we're moving like files out of 2 rooms from Holbrook over into that area too. Find some shelving and trying to get them things up off the floor. So I think it'd be a lot easier to discuss if we can drop a little site plan and indicate how the space will be used.
I don't mean it to be extra work. I was just thinking, they've been used to sharing with Inova, so I know they're used to sharing, but it suddenly struck me, I don't know with Spectrum over there really how much space they're using, what that setup is. I don't go over to visit them, so.
Well, what I know about it is talking to Tim as much as possible and what has to be done to make it work.
And they'll do it,
So,
they'll do it, I'm not worried, I was just surprised, so it'll be interesting to see how that works.
So
They deserve a home.
that'll be coming in greater detail soon.
Yeah, I think they have to go through transition, just putting them back in maintenance and operations, they might just have a meltdown. They've lived sort of separately in quarantine, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that
Thank you.
update. We will look forward to more information. Okay. That brings us, yes, any questions? I think so. Okay, so, yeah, the board knows how to, get agenda items to either Dr. Meyer or myself, and we to go back into closed session because we didn't finish all of our business. So we are now going to go back into closed session. And if you want to wait for us to come out, that'd be swell. If not, have a good evening.